Prime Minister Narendra Modi pitched the idea for India to become a developed nation by 2047, and some key policies pertaining to industry and trade plays a vital role in India's journey toward becoming a developed nation. To speak more about it and to speak on the policy aspect of the policy, we are joined in by a very special guest, Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, Secretary, DPIIT. Thank you, sir, for joining us and speaking to Republic Business. Sir, since the overarching theme of the interview is Road to 2047, so I would like to ask you to gauge the progress that we have made so far in the last 10 years and the reforms that we have undertaken so far.
So, I'll talk about industry, which is the subject that I deal with. If you see our progress there, ever since the launch of Make in India and thereafter more recently in the last 3 years through the production linked incentive scheme, government has tried to sort of revitalize and transform the industrial sector of this country. We've put in an outlay of almost $26 billion across 14 sectors of the economy, cutting across some 10 different departments to create global champions, to enhance investment, to increase exports and to create employment. In addition to that, there are parallel schemes such as the semiconductor mission, which is work to ensure that chip making becomes part of India's manufacturing ecosystem. And there are similar other initiatives in areas like green energy, where we followed a combination of incentives and mandates to accelerate India's renewable energy production and to ensure that we overachieve when it comes to our NDC goals. So, I would say government has taken overarching steps to transform India's manufacturing and industrial ecosystem, but over and above all, at the macroeconomic level, government has tried to ensure that through unparalleled levels of investment in both physical and digital infrastructure, it really sets the ground for enhanced growth rate for the entire economy, not just the manufacturing sector.
Right. And sir, one of the big policies is PLI with an outlay of 2 lakh crores for across 14 sectors. How do you just tell our viewers what has been the progress so far and what are the roadblocks and the reforms that are still required?
So, the PLI scheme has on the whole in the majority of the sectors that you mentioned has worked well. It has so far led to investments of about 1.13 lakh crores. It has generated sales of 9.34 lakh crores, employment of around 8 lakh. It has led to exports of almost 3.5 lakh crores. It has led to a huge turnaround in areas like mobiles, where our mobile exports have suddenly become very high. From the PLI beneficiaries under the as far as mobiles were concerned, were only 20% of the market share at one stage. Now they contribute to 82% of mobile phone exports last year. Production of mobile phones has increased by more than 50%. Then in sectors like pharmaceuticals, for the first time in 30 years, we've restarted production of penicillin. There are some 39 medical devices that we are starting to produce for the first time in this country. Similarly, in telecom sector, there have been notable achievements in terms of achieving an import substitution of almost 60%, and also significant impact in areas like drones, which has seen a compounded annual growth rate of almost 90%. Also, when it comes to food processing, we've seen a lot of new units coming up all across the country, a large number of them being from the MSME sector. So, this has been a transformational kind of initiative, and if you see in terms of our targets, out of the 14 sectors, in 9 sectors, the projected investment targets so far have already been overachieved, particularly in areas like mobile and electronics manufacturing, medical devices, food processing, etc. So, yeah, it's doing well. There are a couple of sectors which are a little lagging behind, particularly textiles, steel, etc., because of different factors. In one case, due to a lack of adequate flexibility in the original scheme in terms of the product lines covered. In the case of steel, there were specific issues in terms of importing machinery on time, which got held up due to supply side issues.
And so, are there any tweaks expected going forward in those 5 sectors?
In some of the sectors, we are proposing, or we have proposed certain tweaks, mainly in terms of expanding some of the product lines and the HSN codes, and also some flexibility in terms of timelines. But and those are under the consideration of government.
Okay. And sir, also one aspect is, are you thinking to broaden the horizon of PLI scheme going forward?
No, as of now, we are focusing on ensuring that these 14 sectors, the schemes, really mature, do well, meet their physical and financial outcomes, and thereafter, we'll think about others. As of now, let me also add that almost $1 billion worth of incentives have been disbursed cumulatively under the scheme till the end of the last financial year, almost 8,500 odd crores. So the scheme is beginning to sort of pick up momentum, and we hope that it will transform the manufacturing ecosystem of this country.
Okay. And so talking about EV policy, one report recently from GTRI says that India's push for EVs may lead to a large-scale entry of Chinese firms in domestic market. What is your assessment of this study?
I think it's really misconstrued, because the policy essentially concessional import duties are contingent on the company in question committing to minimum levels of investment, which is $500 million, and thereafter on a pro rata basis it can import a bit more depending on the investments made, but with an overall cap of 6,400 odd crores. Now, because the two are linked, the notion that Chinese imports will come, Chinese imports can only come at the current import duties, which are 70% and 100% depending on the price point, 35,000 or above. Since for when it comes to Chinese investments, we now follow a policy of case by case scrutiny of investment proposals. The notion therefore that the Chinese imports can flood as a result of this policy is really a misplaced argument. It doesn't work like that at all, simply because the investment, since the investment is going to go through a very detailed scrutiny process, the question of imports hardly arises.
So basically, you're repudiating this study. There is no possibility of Chinese EVs flooding the Indian market.
Under our present policy, the Chinese imports of EVs can only come at the rate of 70% and 100%. The concessional import duty cannot come for the simple reason that it is linked to investment, and investments from land border countries, which includes the country that you mentioned, are only allowed after a scrutiny from various strategic and security viewpoints.
And then some people are saying that it can also come into the Indian market through joint ventures with Chinese player of the Indian companies. So what is your clarification on that?
Again, whether it is joint venture or any other route, the same scrutiny process applies when it comes to investments from land border countries.
Okay. So talking about FDI, how do you assess the foreign direct investment in India since last 2 years? And since I know you set the target of $100 billion going forward, but our long-term average has been $70 billion. So how do you decode that?
So the average used to be about $35 billion about 12, 13 years back. It's now 70, and this a further shift to 100 is very much achievable, given the fact that we are now one of the world's most attractive investment destinations. In terms of our current FDI inflows, we are the 8th most attractive destination in the world. We will, I'm sure, become even more attractive, given the fact that we are making such huge efforts in terms of improving our logistics space through investments in physical infrastructure, through the improvement in our digital ecosystem, and also because of the fact that we are putting so much emphasis on ease of doing business. Every year, even though the World Bank has given up its EODB rankings, we continue to rank our states on their EODB rankings, and as a result, our business environment is continuously improving. So this combination of good infrastructure, emphasis by government on ease of doing business, and the unparalleled level of market opportunities that exist in India as a result of its growing middle class and the largest population in the world, all these factors make us a very, very attractive destination, and we really don't see any reason why we cannot achieve $100 billion as an average FDI inflow in the coming years.
Okay. And so what explains the decline in the past few years? Is this something alarming for you that the FDI has declined in the last 2 years?
So, to put the record straight, the highest ever FDI was about $84 billion in 22-23. Thereafter, there was a small dip, about 15% or so. That dip is primarily a combination of geopolitical factors, or geopolitical conflicts, combined with some level of sticky inflation in some of the developed countries, and the fact that interest rates are high in some of those countries. Our view is that trend will change in the near future. Combined with the factors that we mentioned, we really expect FDI inflows to pick up, given the fact that India offers a combination of not only the factors that I mentioned earlier, but also it provides both political and macroeconomic stability at a time when that is really not available in many areas around the world.
Right. As one important policy is a deep tech policy, and that is in the pipeline. When we can expect the finance policy to be out in the public domain?
So, in the context of our very dynamic startup ecosystem, there is a belief that there are elements of the startup ecosystem which focus on intensive R&D and innovation, which have a different set of requirements in terms of patient capital. And for that, there has been a suggestion that we build up a separate policy and perhaps some separate funding mechanisms for deep tech startups, which require long gestation periods and which require much more hand holding than the normal sort of process improvement type of startups that proliferate. So, this exercise is on right now. There is interministerial consultations are going on, and once that is completed, we hope to roll it out and thereafter create a separate, more facilitative window for deep tech startups.
And so, by when we can expect it to be out?
Government processes take their time, so I really wouldn't like to sort of give a timeline, but we hope to do it as quickly as possible.
Okay. Okay. And so, next thing is e-commerce policy. That plays a very pivotal role. How far we have progressed as far as e-commerce policy is concerned? And also, there are reports that it is part of the government's 100 days agenda.
So, the government's 100-day agenda is not in the public domain, so I am not going to sort of confirm that or deny it for that matter. But yeah, these are all the e-commerce policy has been going through a very long series of consultations, and we expect from our point of view it is in the final stages, and we hope to get it done soon, but I can't give you timelines on this.
Okay. And so, one thing that we are trying to get leverage of China plus one, right? And also one competitor just next to us is Vietnam, which has rationalized import duties and custom duties. So, one thing is that if we want to become a manufacturing hub, first we have to compete with Vietnam. How do you see that? Are we in a position to compete with Vietnam?
So, of course, Vietnam is a comparatively smaller economy with a much smaller population. They have done well because obviously their system is a bit more flexible. They've also tied up a large number of FTAs around the world, something on which we are also now increasingly working on. But I wouldn't say that we are really competing with Vietnam in that sense. We are a much larger economy with a different set of needs and requirements. But there are elements of their approach in terms of its pragmatism, its ideological pragmatism, and its quick-footedness in terms of concluding trade deals. Those are things that perhaps should be looked at. However, let me also add that when it comes to a country like India with the kind of size that it has, I don't think the comparison with a relatively smaller market like Vietnam is that relevant. India has its own sort of strengths, particularly when it comes to services, but also increasingly in manufacturing. We hope that we can also transform our manufacturing ecosystem rather. And finally, let me also add that when it comes to tariffs, yeah, my department is of the view that we need to take care of our some of the distortionary tariffs that we have. We need to ensure that tariff inversions or inverted tariff structures, whether it is in GST or whether it is in customs tariffs, those we do need to sort of remedy and resolve to strengthen the hands of our entrepreneurs and improve the competitiveness of our manufacturing sector.
And so you have been a proponent of rationalizing basic custom duties as well to make Indian businesses more competitive. So is there any progress happening? Is there talks between the ministry on rationalizing of import duties or basic custom duties for that matter?
I think you will find that in some areas the government has already taken steps at rationalization, and I am talking about electronics and mobile components in particular, where some degree of rationalization has already been done. In other areas also, DPIIT will continue to sort of pursue with the concerned departments to ensure that wherever inverted or inordinately high tariffs on inputs and components and intermediates are affecting the competitiveness of our industry, we would continue to sort of take up those cases and try to rationalize such tariffs.
Okay. As a last two question, one is hybrid vehicles can be given certain tax concession over pure internal combustion engine vehicles. This is something was in the reports today. What is your take on that? How far we have moved on this, and what we can expect as far as tax concessions are concerned?
DPIIT's view has been that in comparison to ICE engines, in comparison to fossil fuel vehicles, and the continuum going up towards pure electric vehicles, for hybrids also there should be some concession in between the pure electric vehicles on the one hand, which have a 5% GST, and the the ICE engines which have say 42-43% duty. Something in between should be worked out for the hybrid vehicles, particularly the ones which have high levels of energy efficiency. But the subject relates to the Ministry of Heavy Industries. But from our point of view, yes, we do think that it would be logical to have a continuum when it comes to GST rates also in between the IC engine vehicles and the pure electric vehicles.
So, sir, are you in talks with Ministry of Heavy Industries? Is any progress?
We have given our views to them. They will obviously take the final call on this in consult with the Ministry of Finance.
Okay. So, last question, one thing that people are saying that with this EV policy, the Tesla's entry into India is imminent. So, what is your take on that? Do you think that is it imminent and Tesla is going to come very soon in India? And there are also reports saying that Maharashtra and Gujarat are offering very lucrative land deals to Tesla. Do you want to comment on that?
So, 2 points. One is that healthy competition among states to attract investment is always welcome. Number 2, ever since this issue came to the forefront, Government of India has been saying that our policies will always be will not be enterprise or company specific. The policy will be open. It will the intention is to ensure that the policy is open to all kinds of manufacturers, both from within and outside the country. And our view again is that once this policy has been notified, our view is that a large number of both domestic and foreign players would ultimately come forward to take advantage of this policy, and not just the company that you mentioned.
Okay. And so, last question, since we are talking about India becoming a developed nation by 2047, what are the 3-4 key things that you see which are a part of your domain, which you would like to take some reforms on that?
I think there are fairly clear set of targets that we should give ourselves, that when it comes to our ease of doing business rankings, we should be in the top 50 in the world at least. In areas like innovation, we should be in the top 25 in the world. Similarly, when it comes to logistics and ease of logistics, globally we should be in the top 20 in the world. When it comes to startup ecosystem, we are already at number 3, we should aim for number 2 and eventually for number 1. And to sort of ensure all of this, we need to continue to invest heavily in our infrastructure, both our physical infrastructure as well as our digital infrastructure. This combination of factors, accompanied by the fact that we've got a very robust, very strong macroeconomic numbers, our financial institutions are increasingly very strong. Some of their balance sheet issues have been taken care of. And finally, we have unmatched levels of political stability, peaceful transition of power in an electoral democracy at a time when many other countries face much tougher times in terms of geopolitical conflicts as well. So, this combination of factors puts us in a good spot to attract investment, to generate good growth as the world's fastest growing economy, and we have no reason to believe that this situation will not continue to sort of provide the tailwinds for our economy going forward.
And sir, last question, where do you see the manufacturing sector's contribution in GDP going up from here till next 10 years?
In the next 10 years, I would imagine that from about 17% of the gross value added, we should be closer to about 20% in about 10 years. That is the kind of target that I think is achievable, given the sort of improvements in the momentum that we see as a result of the PLI scheme, the semiconductor mission, as well as the green energy transition schemes that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to Republic Business and Republic Media Network.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.